Before we begin, understand this clearly: if you are invisible, you are irrelevant. The modern world does not reward silence, humility, or hidden talent. It rewards presence. It rewards perception. It rewards those who understand that attention is not vanity, it is leverage. Law 6 of the 48 Laws of Power is not about ego, it is about survival in a world oversaturated with noise. Machiavelli would not scroll passively through this era. He would dominate it. He would understand algorithms the way he once understood courts and kingdoms. And today, you're about to understand why being ignored is more dangerous than being hated. Stay with me, because this is where power begins to shift. Law 6 is ruthless in its simplicity: court attention at all costs. If people are not looking at you, they are not thinking about you. If they are not thinking about you, they are not influenced by you. And if you cannot influence perception, you cannot influence outcomes. Machiavelli would immediately recognize that modern society has transformed attention into the primary battlefield of power. In Renaissance courts, nobles fought for the prince's gaze because visibility meant survival. Today, the prince is the algorithm, the boss, the audience, the market, the public eye. Obscurity is not humility, it is strategic suicide. Dark psychology begins with understanding that humans are visual and emotional creatures before they are rational thinkers. They respond to what captures their senses, not what quietly deserves merit. The brutal truth is that competence without visibility is wasted potential. In the modern arena, attention is oxygen, and without it, your influence suffocates. Machiavelli would not treat attention as vanity but as infrastructure. He would study how narratives spread, how scandals trend, how reputations are manufactured and destroyed in cycles measured by hours rather than years. He would understand that attention shapes reality because people believe what they repeatedly see. In a workplace, the person who speaks up in meetings becomes associated with leadership, even if their ideas are average. In school, the student who consistently engages becomes memorable to teachers and is more likely to receive opportunities. In business, the entrepreneur who dominates visibility often outperforms competitors with better products but weaker presence. Attention builds familiarity, and familiarity builds trust, even when that trust is irrational. Dark psychology reveals that repetition creates perceived authority. The mind equates exposure with importance. Machiavelli would design his presence deliberately, ensuring that his name surfaced often enough to become unavoidable. The first power play within Law 6 is engineered controversy. Not reckless outrage, but strategic disruption. Human psychology is wired to notice conflict because conflict signals potential threat or opportunity. When you challenge accepted norms in a calculated way, you create emotional friction, and friction creates memory. Machiavelli would never aim to please everyone because universal approval is forgettable. Instead, he would divide opinion carefully, knowing that polarized audiences talk more, defend more, and engage more intensely. In the corporate world, this might mean presenting a bold, unconventional solution that disrupts stale thinking. In content creation, it means articulating uncomfortable truths others avoid. The goal is not chaos but cognitive disruption. People remember the person who made them feel something sharp. Emotional spikes embed you into memory far deeper than polite neutrality ever could. The second power play is symbolic dominance through image and presence. Before you speak, people assess your posture, tone, clothing, digital footprint, and emotional control. Machiavelli understood that perception precedes substance. In modern life, your online presence is an extension of your authority. A polished profile, confident body language, and controlled speech patterns signal competence before proof is required. Dark psychology teaches that humans categorize rapidly, they assign status within seconds. If you appear uncertain, you are subconsciously filed as lower rank. If you project intensity and composure, you are granted psychological weight. This is not superficial. It is neurological pattern recognition at work. Machiavelli would curate his aesthetic meticulously, knowing that visual dominance reduces resistance. Authority is often accepted before it is examined. Image becomes armor. The third power play is strategic unpredictability. Predictability breeds comfort, and comfort breeds invisibility. When people believe they have fully mapped you, they stop observing you. Machiavelli would introduce controlled unpredictability to keep observers alert. This does not mean erratic behavior, it means calculated variation. Sometimes speak less when expected to speak more. Sometimes step forward when others assume you will stay silent. In negotiations, unpredictability creates leverage because it disrupts opponents' calculations. On social media, alternating tone, format, or intensity can sustain audience attention. The brain is addicted to patterns, but it is even more addicted to broken patterns. Uncertainty forces attention. Machiavelli would use this to ensure that his presence remained psychologically stimulating rather than background noise. Attention also operates as social proof. People gravitate toward what others are already watching. If a crowd forms, more people gather instinctively. This herd behavior is ancient and deeply embedded. Machiavelli would exploit this by amplifying small victories into visible events. In business, showcasing testimonials, milestones, or public recognition multiplies perceived credibility. In the workplace, being seen collaborating with high-status individuals elevates your own rank. On social platforms, engagement metrics create a feedback loop of perceived value. Dark psychology shows that humans use external signals to determine internal worth. When others pay attention to you, you appear important by default. Importance becomes contagious. Machiavelli would understand that visibility compounds like interest. However, Law 6 has a darker layer. Attention can be weaponized against you just as easily as it can empower you. If you attract attention without controlling the narrative, you become vulnerable. Scandals, misinterpretations, and backlash spread rapidly in a hyper-connected world. Machiavelli would never allow uncontrolled exposure. He would anticipate criticism and prepare counter-narratives in advance. He would ensure that even negative attention could be reframed as strength or resilience. The master move is not avoiding criticism but converting it into dominance. Dark psychology acknowledges that outrage often increases reach. The strategic mind converts hostility into fuel rather than retreating from it. In professional environments, invisibility is often disguised as humility. Many talented individuals believe that quiet excellence will be noticed organically. Machiavelli would dismiss this as naive. Organizations reward those who are visible and memorable. Promotions often follow perception more than raw performance. If your achievements are not seen, they do not exist in collective memory. Attention ensures that your contributions are associated with your identity. This does not require arrogance, it requires strategic communication. Document your results, speak about progress, ensure stakeholders recognize your involvement. Machiavelli would frame this as self-preservation, not vanity. To remain unseen is to surrender influence voluntarily. On social media, attention becomes even more ruthless. Algorithms prioritize engagement, not fairness. Emotional intensity, novelty, and relatability drive reach. Machiavelli would study platform mechanics as carefully as he once studied court politics. He would experiment, analyze metrics, and refine messaging to maximize visibility. He would not chase trends blindly but would leverage them to insert his perspective into existing conversations. Dark psychology reveals that outrage, aspiration, and fear are among the strongest engagement triggers. A strategist uses these responsibly but effectively. The aim is sustained presence, not fleeting virality. Consistency and visibility builds long-term authority. There is also a psychological transformation that occurs once attention becomes habitual. People begin to anticipate your presence. Your voice carries weight because it is familiar. Familiarity reduces skepticism and increases acceptance. Machiavelli would cultivate this deliberately, ensuring his ideas circulated frequently enough to become normalized. When your narrative becomes common, resistance decreases. Repetition embeds belief. This is why leaders repeat key messages relentlessly. Attention over time becomes persuasion. Visibility gradually reshapes perception. Yet the ultimate warning of Law 6 is this: attention without substance collapses. If the spotlight reveals emptiness, you become spectacle rather than authority. Machiavelli would ensure that behind every visible move there was strategic depth. The goal is to draw attention, then justify it. Dark psychology can attract eyes, but long-term power requires competence. Attention opens doors, capability keeps them open. The most dangerous position is being highly visible and profoundly unprepared. That combination invites destruction. In the end, Law 6 forces you to confront an uncomfortable reality. The world rewards what it sees, not what it ignores. You can choose to remain quiet and hope merit speaks for itself, or you can deliberately shape how and when the world looks at you. Machiavelli would choose control every time. He would treat attention as a weapon, a shield, and a currency. In an era saturated with noise, the one who commands the spotlight commands perception. And perception, more often than truth, decides who rises and who disappears. But there is an even deeper layer to Law 6 that most people refuse to confront. Attention is not just about being seen, it is about defining the frame through which you are seen. Machiavelli would understand that whoever controls the narrative controls the meaning. If people are going to talk about you, you must decide what they talk about. If you do not define your identity loudly and repeatedly, someone else will define it for you quietly and strategically. In modern offices, reputations are built in rooms you are not in. In schools, labels spread faster than corrections. On social media, one viral clip can crystallize a permanent impression. Dark psychology teaches that first impressions anchor future perception. Once people attach a trait to you, confident, arrogant, brilliant, unstable, they filter every future action through that lens. Machiavelli would move early to establish a powerful narrative, knowing that later attempts to reshape perception require 10 times the effort. He would also recognize the intoxicating effect attention has on the mind. When people begin watching you, responding to you, reacting to you, you feel validated. That validation can weaken discipline. Many fall into the trap of chasing attention rather than directing it. They become reactive to trends, comments, and criticism. Machiavelli would never become addicted to applause. He would treat praise and hatred equally, as signals, not truths. Dark psychology reveals that attention can inflate ego and distort judgment. When you begin performing for approval rather than positioning for power, you lose strategic clarity. The crowd is volatile. Today they elevate you, tomorrow they demand your fall. Machiavelli would use the crowd's gaze without ever depending on it. There is also the principle of scarcity within visibility. Paradoxically, constant exposure can dilute impact. If you are everywhere all the time, you become background noise. Machiavelli would balance presence with restraint. He would know when to withdraw slightly, allowing absence to create anticipation. This is another dark psychological trigger. What disappears gains value. In relationships, constant availability reduces perceived importance. In business, limited access increases demand. In leadership, selective communication heightens authority. When people must wait to hear from you, they listen more closely when you finally speak. Attention is most powerful when it fluctuates intentionally rather than floods uncontrollably. Another dimension of Law 6 is emotional temperature control. Attention gravitates toward emotional extremes: confidence, outrage, mystery, charisma. Machiavelli would modulate his emotional display carefully. He would rarely show anxiety because anxiety signals weakness. He would rarely show desperation because desperation invites exploitation. Instead, he would project controlled intensity. Dark psychology shows that humans mirror emotional cues unconsciously. If you remain calm in chaos, others subconsciously assign you stability and leadership. If you dominate emotionally charged moments without losing composure, attention consolidates around you naturally. Emotional mastery becomes magnetic. And then there is fear, one of the most ancient attention magnets. Fear commands focus instantly. Machiavelli understood that a ruler who inspired fear, when controlled properly, maintained order more effectively than one who relied solely on affection. In modern contexts, this does not mean cruelty, it means consequence. When your standards are clear and your boundaries are enforced, people pay attention. In workplaces, leaders who follow through on accountability are taken seriously. In classrooms, teachers who maintain consistent discipline command focus. In negotiations, those willing to walk away generate leverage. Fear of loss sharpens attention faster than hope of gain. Dark psychology acknowledges that loss aversion drives behavior more strongly than aspiration. Finally, consider the long game. Attention accumulated over time becomes legacy. Machiavelli would not seek momentary spectacle, he would build a pattern of relevance. Relevance ensures that when opportunities arise, your name surfaces automatically. In competitive markets, familiarity influences decisions subconsciously. Investors back recognizable founders. Clients choose familiar brands. Voters select recognizable candidates. Attention compounds into inevitability. Once your presence becomes habitual in the minds of others, resistance weakens. You feel established. You feel authoritative. You feel real. But here is the chilling realization that completes Law 6. If you refuse to compete for attention, you are still competing, you are simply losing silently. The modern world does not pause for the unseen. It does not reward hidden brilliance consistently. It amplifies what is visible, what is memorable, what is emotionally charged. Machiavelli would never leave his relevance to chance. He would construct it deliberately, maintain it strategically, and defend it relentlessly. Because in the end, the spotlight is not about ego. It is about survival. And those who fail to understand this do not fall dramatically, they fade quietly, and quiet fading is the most permanent defeat of all. If this made you uncomfortable, good. Power should. Law 6 forces you to confront a brutal truth. If people are not watching you, they are not considering you. And if they are not considering you, they are not choosing you. Attention is currency. Reputation is armor. Visibility is leverage. The question is not whether you like this reality. The question is whether you will adapt to it. If this perspective sharpened your thinking, then don't keep it to yourself. Like this video so it reaches others who are still playing small. Share it with someone who needs to understand the game they're already in. And subscribe because this channel is not about comfort, it's about control.